Okay, just takes a second to do that. Great. Wonderful. All right. So let's start off with our tefillah. Okay. Now then, where am I? Share my screen. The tefillah. Okay. ריבון העולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב רחמן וסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה ובהשתחוויה שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומחיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה, על כן אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ועוונותינו, ועל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לבינך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבבך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הערל בסודות תורתך, תהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך קראך ניחוח, ותאציל עלינו, אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גילית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבן לקשר בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראיננו במה שאנו לומדים, כמו המענאים זמירות ישראל, גל עיניי והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני ייתן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לרצון עמי וגאון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen. Can you rachon? Okay, so before we start into the actual texts, today we're going to be learning about the brothers. Okay, we've got the famous story of Joseph being sold by his brothers into Egypt. And I really had to ask myself many questions about this story. There are very, very many puzzling aspects. First of all, we need to ask ourselves, what is the history of brothers, of brotherhood in the Torah? And we actually see that up till now it's not very good. Okay, you've got Cain and Abel, all right, where Cain actually murders his brother Abel. You've got the next brothers we hear about are Yitzhak and Ishmael. They hardly have anything to do with each other. They don't relate to each other particularly, as far as I can figure out. I mean, Ishmael teased Yitzhak when he was young, but that was more or less it. No relationship. There's certainly no brotherhood. Brotherhood as a concept doesn't seem to have existed. Yaakov and Esau certainly had a very intimate relationship in some sense because they were twins, but they also had this tremendous fight between them, which lasted a tremendous amount of time because one was going in one direction, one was in the other direction. Okay. And then we finally get again to a situation where brothers are not managing to be together. And so we are looking at the whole idea of brotherhood as not being a concept which was in any way brought out as a positive virtue at this point. And yet, we have to get to standing at Mount Sinai, Ke'ish echad belev echad. How do we get from this very non-existent or antagonistic aspect of brotherhood to Ke'ish echad belev echad? And this is the transformation that needs to happen because otherwise we could not stand at Mount Sinai and receive the Torah. Because Rabbi Ashlag actually writes that arivut hadadit, mutual responsibility of love your neighbor as yourself, was an absolute requirement for standing at Mount Sinai and receiving the Torah. Okay? Because the most important aspect is love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord your God. That's the Ikar Torah, the general principle of the Torah. And you can't do that if there is no brotherhood. Okay? You can't be the only person in society who is loving his neighbor as himself, and everybody else is just acting for themselves alone, because you'll get trampled on. And most of the mitzvot have to be, we can't fulfill all the mitzvot on our own. Some people are men, some people are women, a couple of people end up being kings, some people end up being Kohanim, others are Leviim. There's obviously, we cannot fulfill all 613 commandments unless there is mutual responsibility. So if you look at this whole trajectory, we go from absolute zero brotherhood to complete brotherhood, okay, in Shemot. How does this happen? So the beginning of this movement towards brotherhood is, first of all, to make us aware that we don't have brotherhood. Okay, not having something on its own does not constitute a true desire for something. I don't have an elephant, okay, but I don't want an elephant. All right, so not having something does not constitute a desire for something. Not having something means that not only a true desire means that not only I don't have it, but I'm longing for it. I notice its absence. I'm hurt by its absence. I feel so sad I don't have it, and I'm longing and praying for it to come about. So we have to go to a situation where up till now, brothers have existed, okay, but they've not had any real good relationship between them, okay? Now we've got to a situation where, okay, I haven't got brotherhood, but I want to have brotherhood, because only when we want to have brotherhood can we create brotherhood. So it's got to be, now we've got to come to a situation where the lack of brotherhood is actually painful, okay? And if you think about the story of Yosef in those terms, many of the aspects, especially that appear in the Zohar, begin to make some sense, okay? So we'll look at some of these ideas, but before we start with the Zohar, I want to start with one short essay of Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag, which I translated some years ago in Master of the Ladder. It's actually in the book Master of the Ladder, and I want to share that with you now because it absolutely deals with the concept of brotherhood in the idea of Yosef. So here it is. And because I've got it already translated into English, I thought this time we'll have a treat and we'll just have it straight in English without having to translate it there and then. Okay? So here we are. And a man found him. Okay, remember the story? Yaakov has sent Yosef off to Shechem. He's actually, Yaakov is living in Hebron at the time. And he says, your brothers are shepherding the flocks in Shechem. Will you please go and see how they're doing? All right. And so he goes to Shechem and he can't find his brothers. Okay. And this is what it says. And a man found him, Yosef, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, what are you looking for? And he said, I'm looking for my brothers. Please tell me where they are herding the sheep. The field refers to the consciousness from which a person brings produce with which he can sustain his world. The work of the field consists of ploughing, of sowing, and of reaping. And the field that God has blessed is designated as one in which those who sow in tears will reap in joy. But a man may wander in the field, that is to say, he may become lost in his intellect until he does not know which way will bring him to his true purpose. Okay? The man, in this case, was the angel Gabriel. And he found Joseph and he asked him, what are you looking for? In other words, can I help you? And he answered, I'm looking for my brothers. What is Joseph really asking for? It's as if he was saying, if I were to band together with my brothers as one company, that is to say, if I were to be part of a group that is working on the love of companions, then I would be able to ascend the highway that leads to the house of God. And this highway is called the way of giving unconditionally. And since this pathway operates against our inborn nature, the only way we can achieve our goal of being able to give unconditionally in actuality is through the love of our companions, wherein each one helps his fellow. But the man says, they, the brothers, Joseph's brothers, journeyed from here. And Rashi, the great Torah commentator, teaches they journeyed away from their brotherhood. In other words, they don't want to join with you. And this disunity was ultimately the cause of the exile of the children of Israel in Egypt. Now, why? We need to ask ourselves, was it the cause of the exile of the children of Israel in Egypt? We actually know from the Brit Bein Abatarim with Avraham, you know, the covenant made with Avraham. I don't know how you say Brit Bein Abatarim in English. Okay, the covenant made with Avraham, that you will surely know that your children will be exiled in a land which is not theirs, and they will serve them, they will afflict them for 400 years, and afterwards they will come out with Rechush Gadol, so with great wealth, with great, not physical wealth, but spiritual wealth. So again, this issue of they had to go down to Egypt. So the question is, could they have avoided the exile of Egypt? Only if they had achieved coming into brotherhood. That would have been the only way to have avoided the going down to Egypt. All right. It was the disunity. Now, it might have been that it would not have been possible to have become to unity except through the exile. All right. And certainly that's the way it played out in the end. Okay. But they had to go through the whole suffering to understand the need for brotherhood and to come to brotherhood. So to enable ourselves to leave our own exile, which is caused by our wills to receive for ourselves alone, we need to join a group that wants to work together on establishing love between all its members, and then we will merit to leave our own inner Egypt and be fit to receive the Torah. Okay? So it's, again, Rav Baruch Shalom Ashlag is looking at this idea of brotherhood and of joining together as a necessity, not only for us, for the children of Israel to stand at Mount Sinai then, but a necessity for us to stand at our own personal Mount Sinai now. Okay? In other words, our own exile is our own exile of living in our will to receive for ourselves alone, our own egoism, okay? And in order to get out of that egoism and come to Torah and mitzvot for the sake of giving, which would be to the fulfillment of Torah in the correct way, Torah lishma, Torah for God's sakes, in order to do that, we actually have to join with each other and learn together in chevutot, learn together in groups, and learn from each other and work to help each other, because only that way can we actually work on letting go of our own egos and establishing love and merit that way to leave our own inner Egypt and be fit to receive the Torah. So that was kind of like I've started with this, in which in a way you could say would be the end of our session in a way. I've started with the end, the conclusion in a way. But I wanted to do that because I wanted to share with you the thought that inspired my search into the Parshat Shavua this week, which was, what does brotherhood bring us, and how do we know that we need it? Okay, so let's go now and look at just a little bit of the actual words of the Torah, and then we'll go into the Zohar. Now I got it ready earlier. Here we are. Right. Oh, I need to change. I have to change my screen. I'm not sure I'm changing the right. Yeah, there we go. That's the right thing there. All right then. Okay, I assume you know the story, all right, about how Jacob loved Joseph more than the others, and he gave him the coat of many colors, and then Joseph brought back bad words about his brothers to his father, and then he dreamt these dreams that he's going to rule over everyone, okay? And of course, it didn't endear his brothers to him at all. All right. Well, let's start, though, from the middle. And the brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. It's very, now notice the details. It doesn't say Yaakov, it says Yisrael. Yisrael was given the name Yisrael when he'd fought the angel, when he'd fought the Yetzer Hara, when he reached the ultimate. Yisrael denotes the full complement of the Or Chochmah and the Or Chasadim, the light of wisdom, the light of loving kindness, the full complement of the light of God completely. Okay, and this is the term it's used in this sentence, whereas earlier it says Yaakov. Yisrael, in his full capacity, in his ultimate awareness, says to Yosef, your brothers are shepherding in Shechem. Go, and I will send you to them. And Vayomelo, and he said to him, Hineni, here I am. Hineni is one of the key words in the Torah. Whenever you get the word Hineni, you know something very drastic is about to happen. All right. All right, something very life-changing, life-turning, So you've got an unspoken but very clear awareness that this sentence is going to change history, all right? And it does. Vayomelo, and he said to him, Lech na va'et shlom achecha v'et shlom hatzon. Go now, see the welfare of your brothers and the welfare of the flock. Vashiveni davar, bring me back word. Now, again, none of this makes sense on a superficial level, because Yaakov knew very well that the brothers hated Yosef. He wasn't worried about him. He wasn't worried to send him into their company. It's a question. And he sent him from the vale of Hebron, and he came towards Shechem. And then Ish, and a man found him, that was the angel Gabriel, and he's wandering in the field. Rav Ashlag says the field of consciousness. He wants to come to God. He wants to come to the right way. Ish, and the man asked him, what are you looking for? I am looking for my brothers. In other words, Yosef is here defining what the real purpose of his mission is. He might consciously or unconsciously, I don't know, but he's defining it. He says, I'm looking for my brothers. Okay? I'm looking for brotherhood. Tell me, please, where they are shepherding. Okay? And the man said, they journeyed from here. Rashi says they journeyed away from brotherhood. Because I heard them say, let's go to Dotan. So Yosef went after his brothers, and he found them in Dotan. And then you know what happened. They saw him from afar. Okay? In other words, meirachok, they're in change of form from him. Afar, a distance in the Kabbalah means change of form, separation. Okay. And before he comes up to them, they conspired to kill him. And they said one to the other, this dream of dreams is coming. Now let us come and kill him. And cast him into one of the pits. We're going to say an evil animal has eaten him. We'll see what his dreams were, or what will happen to his dreams. Now, again, on the surface of things, this really looks appalling. Okay, yes, he was being a very irritating younger brother. Yes, he had fantasies about greatness. Okay, but you know, to commit murder, they knew the story of Cain and Abel. All right, they knew the story of Yaakov and Esau. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? There's obviously something else happening here. V'yishma Reuven, and Reuven heard v'yatzilo mi'adam, and he saved them from their hand. V'yomer lo nakenu nafesh, we're not going to smite a soul. V'yomer le Reuven, and Reuven said to them, al tishbechu dam, don't shed blood. Hashlich oto labor hazeh, cast him into this pit. Asher b'midbar, in the wilderness. V'yad al tishlechu bo, don't lay a hand on him. Laman hitzil oto mi'adam lashivo el aviv. He wanted to save him from their hand and bring him to his father. And it was when, okay, you know the story, that they took him off, they took the coat off, okay, and they cast him into the pit, and the pit was empty, has no water in it, okay, and then they see these Ishmaelites coming along, all right, and that Yehuda says to his brothers, Ma bet Yehuda said to his brothers, what's the point that we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. And don't let our hand be on him. Okay. He's remembered he's their brother. Okay. And his brothers heard. Listen to him. And then we don't actually know precisely what happened. The commentaries here are confusing. Nobody really knows. And the Midianites, who were traders, passed by, and they took Yosef up from the pit, and they sold Yosef to the Ishmaelites, Besrim Kasef, for 20 pieces of silver, Yavruit Yosef Mitzrayma, and they brought Yosef to Egypt. That's one interpretation. The other interpretation is that the brothers themselves brought Yosef up from the pit and sold Yosef to the Ishmaelites. It's not at all clear, okay? You can interpret it either way. Both sides have something to say for them. All right, and so Reuven comes back. He sees the pit is empty, and he's the Krat Banav. He says, "What am I going to do?" All right, and then they dip the coat of many colors into the blood, and they bring it to their father, and they say, "Look, we found this. Is this the coat of your son or not?" And he says, he recognizes it, and he refuses to be comforted. Now that point is very important, okay? And all his sons and all his daughters get up to comfort him. He refuses to be comforted. Yaakov Avinu refuses to be comforted. I mean, he knows, he has trust in God, his faith in God. He's spoken with God. God's spoken with him. He took him all the way. He saved him from Esau. He took him, all the way to Laban's house. He saved him from Laban. He saved him from Esau. He's brought him there. He's took him back. He's look, and he refuses to be comforted. He doesn't say, this is God's will. And this is another aspect. What is going on? I mean, we know that Yahadut, you have 7 days of mourning. You have 30 days of mourning, and then you have to get up and carry on. It's God's will. Thy will be done. Okay, that's it. All right, and off you go. He didn't. All right, he refused to be comforted because his heart knew the truth. Okay. I will go down to my son grieving to the grave. And his father wept for him. Now, I want to just ask a question before we go on. I want to ask an interesting question. Let's imagine, okay, that Yosef gets sent by his father, or everything's exactly the same as this story. Yosef gets sent by his father to look for the sheep, and look for the brothers and the sheep, and he's wandering in the field, okay? He's wandering in the field, and he accidentally falls down an empty pit, okay? And nobody knows that he's there. And some Midianites happen to pass by, and they notice a kid in a pit crying for help, and they stop by and they pull him up and they sell him to some Ishmaelites, and Yosef ends up in Egypt, and the rest of the story follows in the same way. Okay, the brothers, who at the first didn't miss him very much, after all he was this rather annoying brother of theirs, but eventually they see that his father refuses to be comforted, so they go down eventually to Egypt, and they bow down to Yosef. The dreams get fulfilled, and eventually he makes himself known to them, and they have a reunification. What would be the difference in the story? Why was it important that it was the brothers themselves who plotted to kill him? And the answer is tshuva. They themselves had to come to the understanding that they lacked brotherhood, and they needed brotherhood, they needed tshuva, in order to then look for brotherhood themselves and to want it and to come to, like we said, to Mount Sinai Ki'ish Echad B'Lev Echad. So why am I asking this question? I'm going to look now in the Zohar and we'll see there. Oh, my Zohar has disappeared. Okay, we shall get it back. Sorry, I must have accidentally closed it. Or something. All right, I shall open it again. Here we are. Right, now. Let me share my screen. Great. All right. And the brothers went to shepherd the flock of their father in Shechem. Rabbi Shimon said, Li'ot tzon avihim mibaile. My et nakod mile'ela aska imahon shechinta. Di imahon sharia. Begin di inun hava asara. Da Yosef lo hava imahon. Ubinyan min ihu za'ir beveita. Begin kach inun havu asara. V'chad azlu havat shechinta benaihu. Vadan nakod mile'ela. Here we are. So the brothers went to shepherd the flock in Shechem. Rabbi Shimon says it should have said Lirot tzon avihem, to shepherd the flock of their father. Okay, but it's got an extra word in there. Okay, it actually says Lirot et tzon avihem. What's that extra word? What's that extra et signify? Now the extra the word et, okay, means, I can't remember, it points out the subject or the object. I was never any good at grammar, but it points out something like that, okay, of the sentence. All right. But look at its construction. It's aleph ad taf. Everything, all the vessels. And the word et means the Shekhinah. Okay. In other words, to include with them the Shekhinah. For the Shekhinah is called Et. All right. So he says the brothers were gone to shepherd the flock of their father, including the Shekhinah. That is to say that the Shekhinah was inspiring them and was with them. Mishum shayu asara, they were 10, okay? And every place where there is 10, the Shekhinah is inspiring them. Well, at every place where you've got 10 people who are serving God, absolutely. 10 people in a million, okay? But 10 people just walking around in the street, whatever, that's a different question. So here you've got 10 people serving God. That's what it means. So they were serving God, all right? They were serving God, and the Shekhinah was with them. Ki Yosef lo haya imahem. Joseph was not with them. He was on the way to meet them. Binyamin katan ubabayit, and the youngest one, Binyamin, was at home. Mishum zayu asara. So that was the reason they were 10. And they were together. And the Shekhinah was with them. And apparently in the Sefer Torah, it's got a special marking above it to signify this, above the word et. And this is what's fascinating. Ubeginkach bezimna de zabinu leili Yosef ishtatfu kolho bahadei shechinta v'shtifu la bahadaihu kad avidu uma'a va'ad itgalia mila de Yosef lo shoya shechinta alai de Yaakov. And because of this, when they sold Yosef, all of them participated together with the Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah cooperated with them. But when they made an oath, not to reveal the action of selling Yosef. In other words, the Shekhinah was with them, together with them, when they were sitting there plotting to sell Yosef. Okay, it took part in the fact that they were not going to tell their father what had happened. All right. And as we saw, until the matter of the selling of Yosef had been resolved, Lo shata Shekhinah al Yaakov. The Shekhinah did not inspire Yaakov again. Now, when was the selling of Yosef actually revealed? When was it resolved? It was when you get to Parashat Vayigash, when Yosef has taken into captivity Binyamin, pretending, he's the one who stole the silver cup, accusing Binyamin. He said, I'll take him as my servant. And what does Yehuda do? He says, Arov Aravenu, I stood surety for him. Miyadi tavakshenu, for my hand ask him, that he pledged to his father that he would stand surety for Binyamin. He would be a guarantor for him. And when it actually happened, he said, take me in this lad's stead into your household as a slave, and let the lad go free to his father, because I stood surety for him. So when Yosef saw that, and he knew that the desire, et achai ani mevakesh, that the brotherhood is what I'm looking for, then he knew that brotherhood had been achieved. And that's when he revealed, I'm your brother Yosef. Okay, you sold me into Egypt. I'm the one. I'm Yosef, and everything is forgiven. I know that it was through God that it all happened. And so this is what it says here. Okay, hidden away in this little text, we have that the Shekhinah was with them in the selling of Yosef. Okay, in other words, it agreed with all of this, and until the Arivut, the guarantorship of Yehuda with Binyamin had taken place, only then the Shekhinah was able to come back to Yaakov. Tzadi Zayin. V'i tema t'shechinta lo yishtakchati mahon tahazi dichtiv shesham alu shvatim shiftei ya'idut Yisrael l'odot l'shem Hashem. Kol hu tzadikei v'chasidei kiyuma dekol olma kiyuma inun le'ela v'tata. And if you were to say that the Shekhinah was not with them, with the tribes, look and see. It's written that Sham alu shvatim shiftei, I can't remember. Sham alu shvatim shiftei, there arose the tribes of Hashem, Eidot Israel, testimony to Israel, Lodot l'Shem Hashem, to give thanks to the name of God. All of them were tzaddikim and chasidim. Kiumam shel kol bnei olam. They sustain all the inhabitants of the world, that the whole world exists through their merit, existence from above and below, that is all the higher worlds and the lower worlds. Okay? So far, so good? Great. Okay. Now, where were we? Right, we're going to start again. We're going to miss out the next bit and carry on where it says kuf. I think it's kuf bet. It's the bit I need. Yes. That's it. וימצאהו איש והנה טועה בשדה, וישאלהו האיש לאמור, מה תבקש? מה כתיב לאלה? ויאמר ישראל אל יוסף, הלא אחיך רואים בשכם, לך ואשלחך עליהם, וכי יעקב שלי מה? תאהב האחים לאל יוסף מכל בנוי, והווה ידע לכל אחווי הבו שנין לי? אמר שדל לי לגביהו, אלא הוא לא חשיד עליהו, דו ידע דכולו הבו זכאים, ולא חשיד לו, אלא גרים קודשי ברוך הוא כל דע, בגין לקיים הגזירה דגזר בין הבתרים. And the man found him wandering in the field. Okay, the man was the angel Gabriel, and we've looked at the whole idea that he is coming to that field of consciousness. All right, wandering in the field, coming to the field of consciousness. What's written above this? Vayomer Yisrael. And Israel said to Yosef, go see how your brothers are doing, how the flock is doing. Go and I will send you to them. And the Zohar asks the question, wait a minute, he says, Yaakov Hashalem, Yaakov, who was perfect, he was whole, he had the Shekhinah was with him. Remember, the Shekhinah was with him at this point still, okay? All right. He knows he's got the order Chochmah, he's the middle line. He's got the order Chochmah, the order Chasadim. He's combined the Chesed of Avraham, the Gevurah of Yitzchak. He's arrived back Shalem, okay, after all his travails with Laban and Esau. All right, the one who loves Yosef from all his sons. And he knows that all the brothers are hating him. What does it mean, hating him? We've just said that the Shiftei Yah were tzaddikim, were chasidim, they're upholding the world. The Shekhinah is with them. How can they be hating him? What does hating him really mean? We've got two answers to that. First of all, they're not in affinity of form, okay? That's what the word hatred means. They're not in affinity of form. It's hard to understand. It truly is. Who's not in affinity of form? It might be contrary to what we think. All right. Normally we say that the brothers are hating Yosef because, and it's also written in the text like this, that he's hating Yosef because of his dreams and because of the jealousy, because of the coat. But who was it who started this whole thing off? It was Yosef. He brought back evil report of his brothers to his father. Just see where Lashon Hara gets you. Honestly, he brought back evil report of his brothers to his father. So my question is, and we'll see what the question is in a moment, all right? Okay, so why Yaakov knows that the brothers hate him, in other words, they're not in affinity of form. Why does he send him to them? He didn't suspect the brothers. He knows that all of them are tzaddikim. And he didn't suspect them. But the Holy Blessed One organized all this in order to fulfill the decree that he decreed to Avram Avinu bein hab'tarim. Okay. So yes, there was a decree. And the decree was that the children of Israel have to go down to Egypt. And it's whilst they're in Egypt and sharing their suffering, they actually achieve brotherhood. With Yosef and the brothers, they achieve brotherhood, as we saw, when the revelation of the selling into slavery comes to light, when Yehuda becomes guarantor for Binyamin, they achieve brotherhood. But that's in the potential, okay, because the brothers are the heads of the tribes. In Egypt, the tribes themselves have to achieve brotherhood so that they can stand at Mount Sinai, Ke'ish Echad B'Lev Echad. Otherwise, they would not be able to stand at Mount Sinai. So in order to actually give the inheritance to the children of Israel, which is what Avraham was asking for, you have the Brit Bein HaBetorim. But listen, but still there are these hints here and there, you know, in the Gemara and other places. Couldn't it have happened another way? Did it have to happen that way? And the answer is probably not. A gezerah is a gezerah, but gezerot can be nullified if one prays hard enough and one does the right things. Gezerot are not written in stone. So what caused the whole cycle of all the gezerah to happen in the way it happened was probably, might well have been the diba, the lashon hara, because the Zohar clearly says that the Shekhinah was with the brothers, and when they sold him into Egypt. Okay, so once that chain of events had started, the whole thing was inevitable. On the other hand, we also have to say that all our thoughts come from God. And ultimately, we have to say that even the dibah that Yosef brought against the brothers was what God wanted. Was what God wanted. Before the action, we have a chance to not do it or to say no, to use our free choice. After the action, we have to say that what actually happened was what God wanted. B'chol, like we say, one way or another, that has to come about, that the children of Israel learn brotherhood and achieve brotherhood. Kuf Gimel. Eshkachana b'sifri kadmai, debayin elin b'nei Yaakov l'shilta alai, od lo yachut l'mitzrayim, ze'ilu hu yachut l'mitzrayim, ve'inun lo shaltu be'bekadmeta. Echlin mitzrayim l'shalta ala olmin alai od Yisrael. V'tkaimer beib Yosef, izdaban la'ovda, ve'inun shaltu aloi, v'afal gav Yosef hava malka levatar, u'mitzray havu avdin le, ishtachachu Yisrael d'shaltu al kohu. Matzati, I found in the earlier books, some of the Zohar was actually written at a later date, okay? The Zohar was not finished at the same time as the Mishnah was finished. It was written down at that time by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the companions. However, it wasn't closed at that time. It got closed later on and during the time of the Geonim. So you do sometimes find elements in the Zohar which are from a later point. So I don't know who's actually saying this. I found in the earlier books that the children of Yaakov needed to have governance over Yosef before he went down to Egypt. Okay. So again, this is another answer to my question. What would have happened if Yosef had just sort of fallen into a pit on the way to, one of these pits? He'd fallen in by accident. That would not have been fulfilled. So the question is, the brothers had to be the ones to sell Yosef into Egypt, okay? So that they have control over him, kind of like they're in control of that before he goes down to Egypt. Because if he'd gone down to Egypt, and it wasn't because of them doing it, the Egyptians would have had the power to govern Israel forever. They would never been able to get out of there. Adkan, that means up till now is the quote from the earlier book. It was fulfilled in Yosef that he had to be sold to be a slave by his brothers. And they governed him to sell him as a servant, as a slave. And therefore, even though Yosef subsequently did become a king, Shemitzrim imlichuhu, because the Egyptians made him king. Nimtzel Yisrael shekvar shaltur kulam. We find that Yisrael here, the 10 tribes, okay, banded together with the Shekhinah, they governed all of them. Because since they were the ones who were actually governing their king Yosef, to sell him as a slave, therefore they're kind of like the controlling of even of the Egyptians themselves. And in this way, the power of the Egyptians was weakened, and they were able to get free from them. Tahazi, the Yosef, the ihu Brit ila'a, kozimna dit kain Brit shechinta et kayim ba'adau b'Yisrael b'shalem kedaka ye'ut. Keivan distalek Yosef Brit ila'a me'olma kadim Brit shechinta b'Yisrael. Kulhu b'galuta. Sorry, dit brinta shechinta b'Yisrael kolhu b'galuta nafku. V'ha ukimna dichti v'yakom melech hadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yadat Yosef. V'kula hava me'am kutchabrichu mima kutchabrichu kedaka ye'ut. Yosef, who is the inner meaning of has the inner quality, whatever the midah, of the higher Brit, which is Yesod of Zerampin, so long as the Brit, which is Yosef, is in existence, is functioning, Hashchina nitkayemet b'Yisrael. The Shechina is fulfilled in Israel, b'shalom kara'oi, in peace as is fitting. Okay, so long as Yosef was alive, but not only alive, Rabbi Ashlag teaches in one of his amazing letters that so long as he was alive in their hearts and they valued him as the tzaddik, the Egyptians had no ability to enslave them. It's only when the midah, the virtue of Yosef, left the world, okay, then the Shekhinah lost, then the Egyptians were able to enslave them. Because then they were sold as slaves, okay? As slaves to the Egyptians, all right? As a Brit Shekhinah v'Yisrael yatzu kulam galut. And then the covenant and the Shekhinah and the tribes of Israel, all of them were in galut. What's galut? The spiritual galut is actually when we believe that there is some other aspect in the world controlling us. That's real exile. So long as they kept the understanding of Yosef, that he was a tzaddik, and the connection with Yosef alive in their hearts, the Egyptians were not able to enslave them. it's when they lost that, and they actually saw him on a sort of a more regular level. That's when the Egyptians were able to enslave them. And the enslavement really means that they thought that the Egyptians were enslaving them. Okay? And they ascribed the enslavement to the Egyptians. But that was the real slavery. Because what it really means is that they should have ascribed the whole thing to God. Okay? And then they would not have been enslaved in that sense. They might have physically had to build some bricks, but they would not have been enslaved. So the enslavement, that galut, is galut from God's presence. All right? So long as the idea of Yosef, the midah of Yosef was in the world, then the Shekhinah and Israel were fine. When they were no longer in the world, no longer in their conscious world, Yatsu kulam b'galut, then they're in exile from the divine presence. And this is how they've explained it. Shekatuv vayakom melech hadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yada'at Yosef. And it arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Yosef. What's the new king? The new rule in their hearts. Which means that his value has been lost, and therefore the children of Israel were now in real exile. והכל היה מן הקדוש ברוך הוא כמו שהיה ראוי להיות. And it all took place from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it was meant to be that way. Wow, very good. Bezot Hashem. So niskeh, that we should merit to true brotherhood, all of us now, which will bring the Gemara Tikkun quicker than anything. That will be our standing at our Mount Sinai. Ke'ish echad b'lev echad. Very nice. Okay, lovely everybody. Lovely that you came. Thank you so much. Lovely seeing you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Have a lovely Shabbat Shalom. And
thank you.
Next week, Bezrat Hashem, we'll learn Hanukkah. Yes? We're from Rabbi Ashlag.
Mm-hmm.
All right, lovely.
Shabbat Shalom. Hanukkah
Sameach.
Shabbat
Hanukkah Sameach, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.